Hi everyone, welcome back. You're listening to All in Your Head and I'm your host and local psych maven Akina Singh Suwal.
Hello, मेरो नाम प्रतीक्षा हो. I am a mental health counselor and also a educator. So म चाहिँ साइकोलोजीमा पढाइ पनि रहेको छु थिङ्स कलेजमा अनि रिसेन्टली समर्पण एकाडेमीमा पनि. एन्ड मनका कुरा भन्ने अर्गनाइजेसनमा चाहिँ I work as a therapist. I mostly work with young adults. So bodies related issuesहरू पनि हुन्छ, sexual trauma related issues which is again related to the body होइन, and personality disorder र neurodevelopmental disorderमा चाहिँ I work.
So cool. I'm a student. So just to start off, alikati light, what are your views towards body image अथवा अहिले तपाईले आफ्नो इन्भाइरोमेन्टहरुमा like while counseling or while teaching students हरु तपाईले body image related चाहिँ के कस्तो नरेटिभ्सहरु चाहिँ अहिले पाइराख्नु भएको छ?
I think body image भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ it's so much related to like society होइन, it's shaped by the society. किनभने when we are young, when we are like हुन्छ नि बच्चा हुँदाखेरि nobody thinks of themselves as fat or thin or हुन्छ नि कालो गोरो त्यसरी हेर्दैन नि त हामीले. We just look at ourselves as ourselves होइन. अनि as we grow up and as we socialize more and more, त्यो narrative of हुन्छ नि how a body should look for it to be attractive or unattractive होइन, or के भन्छ acceptable or unacceptable, त्यो चाहिँ shape हुँदै जान्छ होइन. अब त्यो socialization comes from different parts होला, media होला, हाम्रो family होला, हाम्रो like हुन्छ नि friend circle होला. तर I do see how जस्तै म सानो हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ it was very much there was a specific type of body that was idolized and that was thin body that was idolized. I do feel अहिले चाहिँ the narrative is changing where like women are being more accepting of their body, and I think that has a lot to do with like social media मा पनि we're looking at ourselves as more empowered people. तर again there's still a specific हुन्छ नि shape एउटासम्म चाहिँ हुनुपर्छ होइन. त्यो भन्दा थिनर भयो भने पनि नराम्रो, लाइक फ्याटर भयो पनि नराम्रो, त्यो एउटा स्केल चाहिँ छ. सो हामी we still perceive ourselves as हुन्छ नि what we look like and our body shape. And it's I think very much individual levelमा भन्दा नि I think it's a society को issue more than an individual issue जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई चाहिँ.
ठ्याक्क तपाईले young age देखि हामीले interact गरिरै like we understand, like we try to make sense of like whatever is happening around us. हामीले अब like as like born हुनेदेखि नै like we make sense of like well हाम्रो parents को gender के छ, how are these gender interacting, what's my gender, यसरी like interact गर्दै जाँदाखेरि पनि अब सानो हुने बेला maybe like chubby babies हरु मन पराउँछ होला, but like even if like you have like experience of growing up as a chubby baby हुन्छ नि, there's like त्यो आफैलाई नै त्यो feel हुन्छ कि like relatives हरु like oh so cute भन्ने त्यो बेलादेखि like अलिकति धेरै नै मोटायो छ नानु अथवा बाबु यसो भनेको त्यो shift पनि feel भइरा हुन्छ कि. and plus जेन्डरकै कुरामा पनि कति धेरै कुरामा हामीलाई त्यो एउटा फ्यामिलीको प्राइड भनेकै छोरी हो, लाइक तिमीले आफ्नो मोडेस्टी राख्नु अथवा तिमीले आफ्नो फिजिकल अपियरेन्सहरू मेन्टेन गर्नु, तिमीले कसरी बोल्छौ अरूसँग, त्यो सबै फ्यामिलीको प्राइडसँग त्यसरी जोडाइदिन्छ नि त. एन्ड स्पेसली अहिले यस नरेटिभ्सहरू चेन्ज भइरहेको छ, बट स्टिल द्याट इज लाइक अगेन लाइक इट्स भेरी सेन्ट्रलाइज कि अगेन. अनि अब लार्जर स्केल नेपाल नै एज अ नेसन हेऱ्यो भने like we might not have like proper data, तर we can question it, like is it really being के भन्छ destigmatized as it is in the cities, or is it just like यता मात्र भइरा हो कि भनेर हो नि त. and we do need to question that as well. and how do you think यो जेन्डरको कुरामा चाहिँ हाम्रो जसरी यो फिमेलहरूलाई यो सोसल स्पेसेसहरूमा आफूलाई एक्सप्रेस गर्नु or पार्टिसिपेट गर्नुमा त्यो एउटा अटोनोमी नै रोकाइरहेछ नि त. अनि अटोनोमी रोकाउँदाखेरि एउटा आफ्नो बडीकै सेन्स अफ अटोनोमी पनि त लुज भएको जस्तो फिल हुन्छ. लाइक यु आर नट you don't have the full control of your body, or your body just does not belong to you, but your body also belongs to your family or like the society. Like how do you think like your gender ko kurama it affects like not only just women but like men as well?
I think दुईटा कुरा आउँछ मेरो दिमागमा चाहिँ. वान चाहिँ the way we express ourselves through the way we dress होइन, एउटा कुरा. I think त्यसमा धेरै restrictions छ for women especially है. So when we are like choosing what to wear होइन, हामी कति धेरै कुरा ध्यानमा राख्नुपर्छ नि त होइन. अब त्यो रुमबाट बाहिर निस्किँदा पेरेन्ट्सले कसरी हेर्छ, अरू हुन्छ नि लाइक एक्सटेन्डेड फ्यामिली मेम्बर्सले कसरी हेर्छ, घरबाट निस्किँदा नेबर्सले कसरी हेर्छ हुन्छ नि, अब पब्लिक भेहिकल्समा त्यो ड्राइभरहरूले कसरी हेर्छ. सो मेनी थिङ्स द्याट हामीलाई whenever we look at ourselves through a certain gaze, and a lot of times that is a male gaze होइन. अनि इभन womenहरूले हाम्रो ड्रेसअपमा कमेन्ट गर्दा पनि इट्स फ्रम अ मेल गेज नै हो नि त लाइक केटाहरूले चाहिँ कसरी हेर्छ भन्ने तरिकाले होइन सो त्यो वेमा वी अलरेडी रिस्ट्रिक्टिङ आवर एक्सप्रेसन अफ आवर बडिज किनभने ड्रेसिङ अप फेसन भनेकै एक्सप्रेसन अफ हु वी आर हो नि त सो त्यो वेमा चाहिँ आई थिङ्क इट्स रिस्ट्रिक्टेड होइन अनि हामीले कति धेरै चोइसेसहरू चाहिँ बेस्ड अन वाट अदर पिपल माइट थिङ्क अफ अस अनि से टु अस लिइरहेको हुन्छ होइन सो वी माइट बी मोर कभर्ड अप अर हुन्छ नि हामीले चाहिँ दो हामीले लगाउनु मन लागेको लुगा नलगाउन सक्छ होइन अर वी माइट लाइक सेभ एन आउटफिट फर लाइक अ भेकेसन इन अ मोर लिबरल प्लेस होइन त्यो सबै गर्न त्यो गरे पनि इट इज रिस्ट्रिक्टिङ द वे वी एक्सप्रेस आवर सेल्स होइन अर मेकअपको कुरामा स्पेसली होइन सो इफ लेट्स से कसैलाई चाहिँ लाउड मेकअप गर्न मन लाग्छ एन्ड द्याट इज द वे दे एक्सप्रेस देमसेल्फ तर गर्दैन होला बिकज वाट विल अदर पिपल से भनेर होइन अर आइ एम ड्रेसिङ अप फर सम वान अर आइ एम पुटिङ मेकअप फर सम वान एल्स भनेर विच इज नेभर द केस होइन अनि इभन इफ यु आर इट्स यर चोइस होइन त्यो एउटा वेमा हुनसक्छ And I think second is restriction of movement like you said होइन किनभने because of our body and us being women and us having certain के भन्छ private parts होइन we are not allowed to move freely जस्तो लाग्छ कि मलाई अझै काठमाडौँमा त I think it's a lot lesser यो restrictions होइन तर I do see everywhere कि हुन्छ नि जस्तै के भन्छ कतै जानु पर्यो भने वी हेभ टु टेल देम कहाँ जान लाग्यो हुन्छ नि पेरेन्ट्सलाई सबै इन्फर्मेसन दिनुपर्छ कतिखेर फर्किने कसरी जान लाग्यो भनेर अनि त्यसले नै अटोनोमी लिएर गयो नि त होइन आई डु अन्डरस्ट्यान्ड सेफ्टी कन्सर्न्स हो तर त्यो सेफ्टी कन्सर्न्स पनि देयर इज अ रिजन द्याट इट इज देयर होइन अब सेम वेमा अब हुन्छ नि कता चाहिँ वी क्यान गो एन्ड नट गो भन्ने कुरा पनि देयर इज अ रिस्ट्रिक्सन होइन सो लाइक अब अँध्यारोमा धेरै बेर बाहिर बस्नु हुँदैन बिकज अफ वी आर वुमेन होइन त्यो सबै रिजन्सहरू हुनसक्छ एन्ड अल्सो सानो सानो चोइसेस लाइक लेट्स से हेयर कट फर इक्जाम्पल होइन किनभने सो मच अफ आवर ब्युटी इज टाइड टु आवर हेयर सो अब लामो कपाल हुनु भयो भने चाहिँ ब्युटिफुल अनि अब त्यो कपाल काट्ने पनि इट्स लाइक अ फ्यामिलीको डिसिजन रादर देन यर इन्डिभिजुअल डिसिजन नि त होइन अब द्याट कम्स फ्रम लाइक सच अ सोसल प्लेस कि रादर देन हुन्छ अब द आइडिया अफ ब्युटी होइन सो रिसेन्टली यो हाम्रो फेमिनिस्ट फ्युचर्स भन्ने एक्जिबिसनमा पनि देयर वाज अ पार्ट कि जहाँ चाहिँ हेयर बिङ हुन्छ नि लाइक एन इन्डिकेटर अफ ब्युटी भनेको थियो स्पेसली साउथ एसियन स्पेसेसमा इफ यु सी हुन्छ नि लाइक इभन हाम्रो लाइक गडेस हिन्दू गडेसेसहरूको हेऱ्यो भने दे अल हेभ लङ्गर हेयर्स होइन अनि लाइक एक्ट्रेसेस दे युजली पोर्ट्रेट ह्याभिङ लङ्गर हेयर्स होइन अनि त्यो वेमा पनि हेयर र हाम्रो ब्युटीको कनेक्सन पनि धेरै छ अनि त्यसमा पनि चोइसको कुरा आउँछ द्याट वी डोन्ट ह्याभ द चोइस अ लट अफ टाइम्स होइन टु लाइक कलर आवर हेयर हुन्छ नि ट्रिम आवर हेयर त्यो सबै फ्यामिलीको डिसिजन हुन्छ अनि त्यसको पनि हामीले अटोनोमी लिँदा इट बिकम्स लाइक हामी मिड 20sमा पुगिसक्छ हुन्छ नि बाई द टाइम वी टेक द्याट अटोनोमी ब्याक फर अस सो आई थिङ्क यो दुइटा आई थिङ्क रिस्ट्रिक्सन मुभमेन्ट द वे वी एक्सप्रेस आवर सेल्फमा चाहिँ आई सी अ लट अफ लिमिटेसन क्या हाम्रो लागि वेयर हाम्रो बडी अनि अस बिङ वुमेन अनि जेन्डरले चाहिँ रिस्ट्रिक्ट गरेको हुन्छ आई थिङ्क इट्स द सेम विथ मेन एज वेल तर मेबी इट इज एक्सप्रेस इन अ डिफ्रेन्ट वे फर देम होइन किनभने like wanting what if a man wants to wear pink they have so many questions about that as well but I do think that is more of their like I can't speak from male experience obviously but I do see the restriction on both ends maybe experience a little different hola
I don't remember exactly के क्लासमा पढेर बेला थियो but I heard कि बच्चादेखि नै हामीले अब हाम्रो असाइन्ड बर्थको अनुसार हामीलाई त्यो कलर्सहरू यो लुगा लाउने अथवा बार्बी खेल्ने कि गाडी ट्रक खेल्ने कि यसरी हामीलाई त्यो पेरेन्ट्सहरूले नै असाइन गरेर हामीलाई खेल्न दिइरहेको हुन्छ नि एन्ड आई हर्ड कि बच्चाहरूसँग कुरा गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ केटीहरूलाई पिङ्क भनेर एसोसिएट गर्छ नि त अनि गर्ल चाइल्डले ब्लू लाउनु इज नट एज सिरियस फर पेरेन्ट्स एज मच एज उसको छोराले चाहिँ पिङ्क लाउनु लाइक द्याट इज लाइक मच मोर के भन्ने लाइक alarming खालको like for the parents हुन्छ like यो चाहिँ हुँदैन खालको it's like very black and white when it comes to like the male child भने यसरी चाहिँ सुनेको थिएँ कि मैले and again फेरि हामीलाई जेनरल नरेटिभ कस्तो छ भनेर राम्रै लाइक त्यो क्लियर पिक्चर छैन नि त अब झन् त्यो जेन्डरको हिसाबले हामी त्यसलाई त्यो सेग्रिगेट गर्न त इट इज अ लङ वे टु गो एन्ड या लाइक हेयरको कुरामा पनि लाइक आई कट माई हेयर लाइक जस्ट लास्ट विक एन्ड मेरो आई थिङ्क अहिलेसम्म लाइक नट इभन मिड 20s लाइक 20 सम्म नै it was my mother who decided like कपाल काट्ने कि नकाट्ने, and my hair was like very frizzy, very damaged, but like it was like very long, but it was so bad, it was so damaged हुन्छ नि. And I feel like while growing up as well, like I remember like being very cautious about like how do I look like, अथवा म बस्दाखेरि कस्तो देख्छु, when I walk how do I look हुन्छ नि, like because I did grow up like as a chubby child, and पछि there was always that हुन्छ नि like I'm still chubby wala too, you know. And I feel like I had like a very bad relationship with my hair because like तपाईले भन्नुभएको जस्तो ठ्याक्कै like लामो कपाल भनेको चाहिँ एकदमै beautiful हो, like beautiful हुनु भनेकै लामो कपाल हुनु हो, like someone with short hair cannot be beautiful, like I know यसरी चाहिँ नभन्ला, but like usually भन्नु खोजेकै त्यही हुन्छ कि like त्यही like छोटो कपाल भनेको that's very manly, like हुन्छ नि female, they shouldn't cut their hair short, यस्तो यस्तो कुराहरू. And then I had like very like bad complex with my hair, and so like I had to like always had to have it in a pony, and त्यो messy हुने बित्तिकै like त्यो agitation कि like भित्रैबाट oh no like this person's gonna think that I'm messy यसरी यसरी भनेर हुन्छ like various कुरामा like associations like with the way I look like एकदमै young age देखि त्यो. Also once you're a female like growing up, I feel like हामीले धेरै सानो बेलादेखि we are taught to be like hyper aware of our body के like how we sit, like अब त्यो खुट्टा फाडेर नबस अथवा like close your legs यसरी बस अथवा like यसरी बोल यसरी भन्ने सिकाइरा हुन्छ नि त हामीलाई. अनि त्यसले गर्दा as well like it's like already we're so hyper aware of our bodies, and यो like अब यो त्यो what do you call this, I don't know how to say it properly, तर like त्यो that mafia of like these like beauty industry हुन्छ नि, because they say नि त like किनभने like big companies or corporates they capitalize on our insecurities यसरी भन्छ नि त. and बच्चा बेलादेखि नै नेपाली मिडिया भन्दा हामी इन्डियन मिडिया कति देखिरा हुन्थ्यो, and we would see these like Fair and Lovely को ads which they changed their name to Glam and Lovely apparently. Glow and Lovely which I didn't know. Last night I got थाहा पाएको and I was like okay yeah, that's not helpful. But yeah, like especially like what do you think हामीले चाहिँ अब अहिले त we have like social media, we have phones and everything, we have got internet right now, and let's say there's an individual who does not want to conform to these like beauty standards, you know, like how would you say उहाँहरूको like mental health like कसरी effect भइरा हुन सक्छ?
I think being rebellious is like a task, right? Like as much as हुन्छ नि like you can always say कि हुन्छ नि oh I don't care भनेर त्यो having to say I don't care and constantly stand for yourself is so draining नि त हैन. So when you're like not conforming to these norms and हुन्छ नि beauty standards, while के भन्छ it's great हैन, I'll just say it's a great like individual step, तर social setting मा constantly having to defend yourself, so it can be so draining. And I think for me as well कति कुराहरुमा I don't like हुन्छ नि I don't fit into the stereotypical beauty standard, and constantly having to in a way justify myself and my choices हैन. I'm just like if I am like having a dessert हैन, there will always be a comment कि यही भएर you look like this भनेर त्यो भइरहेको हुन्छ नि त हैन. And I think having to justify that and to constantly remind yourself कि the opinions don't matter भनेर कि like हुन्छ नि beauty भनेको चाहिँ it's not like one category मा मात्र हुँदैन, there's so much more हैन. अनि beauty is like a very subjective thing भन्ने कुरा हुन्छ. अनि I have to love myself for who I am भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ आफूले भनिराख्नु पर्दा that's a lot of mental pressure on yourself कि. अनि हामी चाहिँ कतिपय times चाहिँ if somebody is dealing with your body image issues and हुन्छ नि dealing with body shaming or हुन्छ नि racist comments हरू हामी कस्तो easily नसुन्न यिनीहरू यस्तै हो, it's their issue not yours भनेर भनिदिन्छ नि त. like यसो वास्ता गर्नु हुँदैन, work on like yourself भनेर भन्छ नि. I feel like that more than it being a self-care को issue, it's a community care को issue के. किनभने self-care भनेको you do it to like nourish yourself हैन, तर when a whole like community is telling you कि whatever you're doing is not good enough or what you like look like is not good enough हैन, how is it like to self-care गरेर के हुन्छ के, because एउटा लेभलसम्म पो हुने हो नि त सेल्फ केयरले हैन. त्यसपछि त इट्स मोर लाइक कम्युनिटीले नै वी हेभ टु चेन्ज एज अ कम्युनिटी द वे वी टक अबाउट बडिज, द वे वी टक अबाउट हुन्छ नि वुमेन हैन. किनभने फर्स्ट टाइम भेट्ने बित्तिकै द फर्स्ट थिङ वी कमेन्ट अन इज समबडीज बडी होइन लाइक ओ कस्तो मोटा छ दुब्ला छ बिरामी देखेछ यसो भन्छ नि त हामीले कालो भएछ होइन यो सबै कुराहरू आउँछ विच इज लाइक कस्तो इन्ट्रेस्टिङ कि द्याट इज द ओन्ली थिङ वी थिङ्क अबाउट त्यही त रादर देन हुन्छ नि एक्चुली आस्किङ पिपल अबाउट maybe what they're going through or what they're working on or there's so many things to ask जस्तै even like just mental health के बारेमा the questions हुँदै पनि होइन like how are you, what are you going through, what's happening in your life भन्दा पनि it's more like ए कस्तो मोटाइ छ त्यही हो नि त which also limits the way we interact with each other पनि क्या it limits community care होइन so us being a communal society नेपालमा होइन and also being like social beings हामीलाई चाहिँ we really need social acceptance अब त्यो भने पनि नभने पनि हामीलाई चाहिन्छ we want to feel like we belong somewhere होइन अनि त्यो belongingness that shouldn't be restricted just because of the way we look होइन so while yes I हुन्छ नि like so many women now and men also and they're like owning up to who they are and not like hurting themselves to हुन्छ नि fit a certain like body type but that is हुन्छ नि commendable तर I feel like as a community we need to like be more accepting of those acts of rebellion हुन्छ नि so हामी सबैजनाले सँगै गऱ्यो भने त it stops being rebellion it becomes normal which is what it should be होइन तर I see like कतिजना in my like experience with therapy पनि like my clients होइन they deal with body image issues अनि for their whole life के होइन अनि बल्ल बल्ल because most of my clients are in their mid-20s होइन अनि बल्ल बल्ल they have started accepting themselves अनि त्यो हप्ता के भइदिन्छ कसैले के भनिदिन्छ अनि they go back to the start के and they have to start again होइन अनि त्यो सर्कलमै हुन्छ नि त हामी अनि लाइफ इज so much more than like हुन्छ नि त्यही सर्कलमा मात्र हामी स्पाइरल गरिरह्यो भने हुन्छ नि there is so much more to life होइन तर the society makes us like circle in that spiral like acceptance र self hateमा गइरहन्छ क्या हामी Karen Horney भन्ने psychologist को चाहिँ एउटा theory छ होइन so she talks about ideal self and real self अनि ideal self भनेको चाहिँ it's हाम्रो social perception of who we should be or who we aspire to be real self भनेको who we are right now होइन हाम्रो like in the rawest version possible what she says is the real self र ideal self मा चाहिँ जहिले पनि overlap हुनुपर्छ कि which means कि हामीले चाहिँ हाम्रो रियल सेल्फमा चाहिँ we should already have qualities of what we want in the ideal self भनेर के होइन अनि जब there is no overlap त्यो बिचको स्पेस चाहिँ डिस्पाइज सेल्फले चाहिँ कभर गर्छ भन्छ कि उसले होइन सो त्यो आइडिया चाहिँ वाइ आई लाइक भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ कतिपय टाइम्स चाहिँ बिकज अफ सोसल एक्सपेक्टेसन्स we make our real selves completely different from our ideal self ideal self होइन so त्यो ओभरल्यापै नहुँदा चाहिँ बिकज अफ सोसल एक्सपेक्टेसन्स बिकज अफ द वे हुन्छ नि वी वान्ट टु बी कम्प्लिटली डिफ्रेन्ट त्यो स्पेस चाहिँ त्यो सेल्फ हेट्रेडले फिल गर्न थाल्छ नि त देन वी स्टार्ट ह्याभिङ नेगेटिभ पर्सेप्सन्स अफ हु वी आर होइन वी स्टार्ट लाइक ह्याभिङ सेल्फ हेटिङ थट्स एन्ड देन वी डेभलप दिज डिसअर्डर्स होइन अनि देन वी स्टार्ट लाइक मेबी सेल्फ हार्म मेबी लाइक हुन्छ नि साइकोलोजिकल सेल्फ हार्म गर्छ होला होइन अनि त्यो स्पेस फिल हुन थाल्छ कि अब for this despite self to not exist anymore we have to also be accepting of who we are you know which happens when we start to like rebel against these community ko stereotypes you know tara again that has to come from a like a supportive place pani we need our support system you know and we need our parents to like be okay with who we are our friends our immediate community haru you know so it is very hard and it does take a lot of mental toll and it's a lot of self work which we shouldn't have to do this a lot from one other person
no like when you're doing that like I mean obviously very brave of anyone to like not only just like body image ko kurama like just any kurama pani social norm bata bahira gaera like afu like afno rawest form like accept garnu bhaneko it like takes a lot of courage and a lot of energy as well okay because to oneself the okay these are my ideologies ma chahi this is what I believe I'm fine with who I am त्यो आफूले भन्न सक्यो हैन तर like we interact with like so many people like बिहान आँखा खोलेदेखि like आँखा राति सुत्नु बेलासम्म हैन and then ठ्याक्क तपाईले अघि नै भन्नुभयो चाहिँ like हामी भेट्ने बित्तिकै like त्यो बडीमै कमेन्ट आउँछ के like this is not even an exaggeration like अरु केहीमा हैन like not like maybe पढाइ second or third conversation मा आउला अथवा like what are you doing at work को like fourth fifth मा आउला
बिहा कहिले गर्ने
बिहा कहिले गर्ने the top 10 मा छ but like first मा त्यो बडीको कमेन्ट आउँछ कि and what I've seen a lot with like my friends and my cousins as well, like once you get certain kind of यस्तो comments, or especially झन् त socialize गर्ने मन लागिरहँदैन like no matter how much you like love your family, or like no matter how much you want to spend time with your cousins or whatever, like you get these comments and let's suppose that they were not meant to be malicious, like भन्नको लागि मात्र भनेको हो, like हाम्रो फेरि हाम्रो डे टु डे कन्भर्सेसनमा चाहिँ यो कुरा भन्नको लागि मात्र भन्यो, like I didn't mean to comment on your body, अथवा I didn't mean to make you feel bad, like यसरी perceive गरेर हुन्छ नि, like भन्ने मान्छेले चाहिँ they don't see the seriousness of it, हैन. अब it doesn't matter, the receiving end ma it could be an individual who is very conscious about their body, or it could be someone who does not care about like how they look, तर doesn't matter like who you're saying this to, like be conscious of what you think, and I've seen so many of my closest friends like school ma especially यस्तो कमेन्ट्सहरू धेरै like day to day basis ma, like even if I hang out with them, I hear like just walking with this certain people कि how much like उनीहरूले सुनिरहेको हुन्छ, like even from teachers, like which really shocked me when I was in school. And अब I'm spending a certain portion of my life with this certain friend, तर like उसले झन् आफ्नो डे टु डे बेसिसमा के फेस गर्दा like त्यो सोचेर नै I would be feeling drained के. And त्यही the cycle हुन्छ नि, like you try to socialize and you were in the type of society where you have to socialize, like kind of like not a choice also, and then you hear these things and then you don't want to socialize, and to constantly like again like you should not have to justify your choices,
exactly.
Unless your choices are very wrong. Unless your choices are very wrong, but to justify yourself again, like I am like this because I just am like this, to justify गरिराख्नु पनि एकदमै कस्तो like not only just mentally, like emotionally and physically पनि like कस्तो त्यो drain नै feel हुन्छ कि. And again त्यो भित्रको त्यो डिसोनेन्स भइरहेछ नि त, लाइक द सोसाइटी मलाई बच्चादेखि यस्तो देख्नु पर्छ, लाइक दिस इज द आइडियल सेप भनेर भनिरहेको छ, बट देन आई डोन्ट लुक लाइक द्याट भनेर पनि त्यो कन्सियसनेस र अवेरनेस त हुन्छ नि. एन्ड त्यो डिसोनेन्स भइसकेपछि त्यही त्यो डिस्पाइज सेल्फको, आई डिडन्ट नो द्याट टर्म, बट हुने त त्यही नै हो नि, लाइक यु एन्ड अप लाइक हिटिङ योर सेल्फ, लाइक अब बडीमै आफूलाई हार्म अथवा हेट नगरे पनि अब मेबी अदर पार्ट्स अफ यर लाइफमा यु टेक आउट द्याट एङ्गर, लाइक यु ट्राई टु च्यानल इज समवेयर, होइन. एन्ड देन या त्यसले गर्दाखेरि पनि लाइक कति धेरै लाइक त्यो भाइस भर्सा हुन्छ नि, वेन युर डिलिङ विथ लाइक सोसाइटिज लाइक आवर्स हुन्छ नि, त्यो एकदमै कम्युनल के, लाइक जे कुरा पनि ग्रुपमा गर्ने सँगै गर्ने, लाइक वेयर एकदमै कम्युनिटी बेस्ड नै छ. अनि त्यो गर्दाखेरि लाइक अल्सो like what do you think, like do you think like Nepal is even ready for this conversation like about body?
I think so. I think yes. I think we need to make them ready to लाग्छ. किनभने I see like मेरो friends हुन्छ नि, people my age, more and more they're becoming हुन्छ नि, they're talking about other things and they're becoming more conscious of how they talk about bodies, होइन. जस्तै हामीले अघि भन्ने इन्टेन्सन नहुन सक्छ टुवर्ड्स समवन, तर द वे इट अफेक्ट्स द अदर पर्सन इज मोर इम्पोर्टेन्ट देन यर इन्टेन्सन नि त, होइन. सो मेरो लाइक इन माई सर्कल आई सी पिपल एक्चुली बिङ कन्सियस एन्ड एक्चुली बिङ लाइक एम्पथेटिक टुवर्ड्स हुन्छ नि वाट अदर पिपल माइट फिल इफ आई युज दिज वर्ड्स भनेर सोचेर बोल्न थालेको छ नि त, होइन. अनि हामीले कतिपय टाइम्स भने स्टार्ट दिस कन्भर्सेसन्स मान्छेहरूले स्पेसली ओल्डर पिपलले आजकल त धेरै सोच्नुपर्छ बोल्न अगाडि भन्छ नि त, सोच्नै पर्छ नि त. इट्स नट लाइक एन अबनर्मल थिङ, होइन. आई फिल लाइक हाम्रो जेनेरेसन बिकज वी हेभ लाइक अहिलेको पिपल हु आर इन द 20s इज वाट आई मिन बाई हाम्रो जेनेरेसन. आई थिङ्क हाम्रो चाहिँ आई डु फिल अ सेन्स अफ रेस्पोन्सिबिलिटी, किनभने वी हेभ एक्सपिरियन्स्ड लाइक एकदमै हेभी बडी सेमिङ, अनि हुन्छ नि हाम्रो बडी बिङ जज्ड एन्ड लाइक लुक्ड एट फ्रम अ माइक्रोस्कोप, अनि हुन्छ नि हामीले एसोसिएटिङ आवर सेल्फ एस्टिम विथ आवर बडी. अनि वी आर अल्सो हेभ एक्सेस टु इन्टरनेट वेयर we've seen like त्यो इम्पावरमेन्ट, अनि हुन्छ नि we've seen like people accepting themselves for who they are, होइन. अनि हामीले दुइटै हेरेको छ, अनि वी सी वाट वर्क्स बेटर फर आवर मेन्टल हेल्थ अनि वाट वर्क्स बेटर फर एभ्री वान्स वेल बिङ, होइन. सो वी नो वाट्स रङ एन्ड वाट्स राइट नि त. सो आई फिल हामी चाहिँ वेयर इन अ गुड स्पेस टु नेभिगेट द्याट के त्यो एन्ड ब्रिङ चेन्ज देयर, होइन. सो मलाई चाहिँ पर्सनली आई लाइक टु स्टार्ट दिस कन्भर्सेसन्स फ्रम माई एन्ड, होइन. अनि आई डोन्ट एक्सपेक्ट एनी वान एल्स टु डु इट, तर आई फिल लाइक हामीले चाहिँ अनकम्फर्टेबल बनाउनै पर्छ कि फर इट टु चेन्ज, होइन. And we need to like make people ready to have these conversations. किनभने if you see सी हाम्रो मम्सहरूलाई पनि सेम इस्यु हो कि होइन लाइक माई मम विल समटाइम्स से लाइक एकदमै हुन्छ नि कन्सर्निङ थिङ्स अबाउट हर बडी समटाइम्स अनि सी नट रियलाइज कि वेयर इट कम्स फ्रम अनि हुन्छ नि लाइक मेरो ममले चाहिँ एकचोटि सी सेयर्ड दिस स्टोरी कि when they were getting married, my mom and dad, कसैले चाहिँ said कि ऊ त त्यस्तो राम्रो छैन to marry my dad भनेर भन्यो म चाहिँ I look at my mom and for me she's the most beautiful person ever होइन अनि when I think like when I look at her commenting on her body that way मलाई चाहिँ it's so like it hurts me a lot किनभने she went through the same thing and then I went through the same thing होइन so I can obviously empathize with her more किनभने I see the social context होइन I see that it's not that हामीहरू beautiful होइन it's because people put us in these boxes जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई so for the sake of our moms पनि to feel better about themselves होइन किनभने for them also it's the first time living life होइन we need to like make sure they have good किनभने mental health भनेको young people को लागि मात्र पनि त होइन and even like our grandmothers for example and as they age they start to like not like the way they look किनभने aging भनेको नै is frowned upon again होइन so we need to like as younger people I feel our responsibility is to have these difficult conversations and to change the way we make small talk maybe or हुन्छ नि talk about bodies maybe होइन or just talk about changing हाम्रो body changing bodies are meant to change होइन हाम्रो moodको बेसिसमा र what we eat that day को बेसिसमा हाम्रो body change हुन्छ नि त especially for women त हाम्रो like यो cycle-ले नै body change गरेर राख्छ होइन so I do feel we need to like make ourselves ready for this conversation and just bring that change होइन तर again I look at it from a very काठमाडौँको lens because this is where I'm from I know it's a lot more difficult in rural areas होला but again we need to like in some way like get the conversation started for it to reach a larger audience as well like even you doing this podcast and like making this a topic of discussion it's like a start so I feel we need to be ready
main to I feel like as someone who is introverted कति धेरै कुरा अब मेरो पनि धेरै कुराहरु चाहिँ फ्यामिलीबाट सुरु गर्नुपर्छ अथवा अब not just मम्सहरु but अङ्कलहरुलाई पनि like आफ्नो बारेमा के भन्नु भन्दा नि अरूहरुलाई के बोलिराको छ like एकदमै कहिले they pass it off त्यही बडीकै कुरा भए पनि अरु के कुरा भए पनि एकदमै क्याजुअली फ्याप्त बोलिदिन्छ but त्यो सुन्ने मान्छेले हुन्छ especially for like young people who is like what are they talking about and it's like something that is like very like not okay to say kind of you know and especially moms ko kura ma pani मेरो mom pani like उहाँ चाहिँ एकदमै dark skin हुनु भयो हैन like she had been never told especially त्यो बिहा गर्ने बेलामै के like you get so much judgment from the male groom side of the family like ए यो त यस्तो भएन यो त उस्तो भएन also यो wedding scene ma pani especially arranged marriage ko ma I've seen so many male bhannu haina male and their family like they don't particularly care about how their son looks haina or what the job their son has but they're so critical when judging to aba rishta haru aउँछ नि and they get to see the picture of the girl haina they're like saying like if the tasma launch this girl is so chubby or like this she's so dark skinned अथवा उसको कपाल त कस्तो नमिलेको when as their son like what is he bringing to the table हैन त्यो त्यस्तो कुराहरु like पनि I've heard so many like especially like family members सँग आउँदाखेरि it does feel a little sad but I do also feel कि it is now my responsibility to educate them as well because उहाँहरुको लागि चाहिँ यो concerning कुरा लागेन होला but then times are changing they need to adapt when we're old we also need to adapt त्यसरी नै like I try to make conversation but then even with अलिकति अब age gap भएको cousins पनि I see so many of my cousins as well who are like 30s or something in a भर्खरै पनि even they're not ready to have this conversation when these people are like they're educated they've been raised in Kathmandu they've had like good internet like western movie exposure हैन they still don't want to acknowledge this conversation के हुन्छ नि like oh हो त you should not be fat अथवा you should not be like fat हुनु भनेको त एकदमै unhealthy हो I mean yes like one point some across भयो भने it is a health concern हैन but then what people don't realize that point is very far away okay I've seen so many people say कि फिमेलहरूको लागि 60 kg भन्दा अथवा 60 kg पुग्नु भनेको एकदम ठुलो कुरा हो एन्ड आई डोन्ट थिङ्क दिज पिपल हु से दिस स्टफ रियलाइज कि 60 kg भनेको कस्तो देख्छ कि बडीमा बिकज 60 kg इज नट इभन अ लट के मेबी हाइटको लागि होला बट देन दे डोन्ट रियलाइज त्यो हेल्थ कन्सर्नसम्म पुग्नुको त्यो मार्जिन कहाँ छ भनेर बट देन दे से हार्टको प्रब्लम हुन्छ ब्रिदिङ प्रब्लम हुन्छ यान त्यान विच इज लाइक yes it is a concern but you don't just say to like everyone like don't say it to just everyone and again like के भन्छ यस्तो कन्भर्सेसन्सहरू अरू फ्रेन्ड्सहरूसँग आउट अफ यर सर्कल गर्दाखेरि पनि I've also seen like a lot of times where even if I have these conversations, I see the same people like repeating the same things, okay? And like time and again like saying like, hey, we had this conversation, remember? We said like this was bad, you shouldn't be doing that. And that responsibility also like at one point becomes like so draining, okay? Because yes, it is like very good thing to do it, but feeling that hyper responsibility that I have to change my circle or like I have to change my circle ko perspective on things bhanera, which is like very needed, very good to do, but then गर्ने मान्छेलाई पनि कस्तो गाह्रो
के which is why I think if you're not mentally prepared to like go through all those things हैन and I do think हामीसँग vocabulary पनि छैन कि to have that conversation
नेपालीमा
किनभने अब obviously म त mental health मा काम गर्छु अनि maybe I have like हुन्छ नि I know how to express what I feel a lot better होला हुन्छ नि तर vocabulary like we don't know how to express our feelings के जस्तै मैले अघि मेरो ममकै एक्जाम्पल दिँदाखेरि हैन अब मेबी सी फेल्ट द सेम वे आई फेल्ट होला when somebody commented on her body हैन मेबी सी फेल्ट एङ्ग्री होला सी फेल्ट द रेज होला सी फेल्ट स्याड होला हैन तर त्यो भन्न नै आउँदैन नि त अरू भन्नु हुँदैन जस्तो लाग्छ हैन अर द सेम अट्याच टु हर बडी त्यो पनि फिल भएको होला हैन भन्न नै आउँदैन अनि केही होइन भनेर छोडिदिन्छ हैन अब अहिलेको मान्छेहरूलाई चाहिँ त्यो कन्भर्सेसन गर्नलाई पनि हामीसँग ल्याङ्ग्वेज छैन कि किनभने हामीले हाउ डु वी एक्सप्रेस आवर इमोसन्स भन्ने कुरामा हामीलाई कसैले सिकाएको छैन नि त अनि मैले कतिपय टाइम्स चाहिँ आई थिङ्क कि इफ सी ह्याड द भोक्याबुलरी द्याट आई डु मेबी सी वुड बी एबल टु लाइक टक अबाउट इट एज मच एज आई डु होइन अनि मैले चाहिँ कहिलेकाहीँ भनिराख्दाखेरि चाहिँ मैले चाहिँ मलाई चाहिँ यस्तो कमेन्ट आउँदा यस्तो फिल भयो भनेर भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ सी इज अल्सो लाइक सक्ड के मैले त्यो भनेँ भनेर होइन अनि आई फिल किनभने लाइक वी भ्याल्यु अरू मान्छेको इमोसन्स मोर देन आवर ओन होइन वेन आई टेल माई मम मलाई यस्तो फिल भयो सी इज मोर एम्पथेटिक टुवर्ड्स द्याट कि रादर देन आफ्नो फिलिङ्स अनि सी इज एबल टु जस्तै अब मैले चाहिँ यो मान्छेकोमा गयो भने चाहिँ एकदम कमेन्ट गर्छ मलाई गाह्रो हुन्छ सो म जाँदिनँ भन्यो भने सी इज मोर एक्सेप्टिङ अफ द्याट कि होइन सो त्यो वेमा पनि किनकि भोक्याबुलरी छैन त्यसैले कन्भर्सेसन्स गाह्रो हुने हो एन्ड अल्सो अल्टरनेटिभ पनि छैन कि किनभने लाइक वी क्यान आस्क पिपल अबाउट हाउ दे आर फिलिङ भन्ने त लाइक इट्स अ कस्तो बिजार कन्सेप्ट फर पिपल नि त वी क्यान टक अबाउट आवर फिलिङ्स होइन कतिपय टाइम्स अब के छ भनेर सोध्यो भने ठिक छ भने सक्यो कन्भर्सेसन अनि त्यसपछि वी मुभ अन टु लाइक अल दिस अदर कन्भर्सेसन स्टार्टर्स वी मेन्सन अघि होइन सो त्यो पनि हो एउटा चाहिँ किनभने वी आर नट लाइक इमोसनली इन्टेलिजेन्ट छैन द पपुलेसन होइन अनि त्यो नहुनुको रिजन इज द सोसल लिमिटेसन्स एन्ड सोसल बााउन्ड्रिज द्याट हाम्रो नेपाली सोसाइटी क्रिएट्स फर अस होइन हायरार्की अल अफ दोज थिङ्स होइन सो किनभने मैले अब कसैलाई मेरो घरमै गएर के फिल भइरहेछ आज वाट डिड यु फिल भन्यो भने कसैलाई पनि आउँदैन कि त्यो कुराहरू मेन्सन गर्न त्यो भएर पनि इट्स अ डिफिकल्ट कन्भर्सेसन होइन त्यही भएर पनि इट्स हार्डर टु लाइक टक अबाउट वाइ वी फिल ब्याड अर वाइ इट अफेक्ट्स अस सो मच है अनि एडिसनली त्यो अघि न जुन वाट यु सेड अबाउट के भन्छ फिजिकल कन्सर्न हो त्यसैले यु निड टु बी थिन भनेर भन्यो होइन आई थिङ्क त्यो कोरिलेसन अफ फिजिकल एन्ड मेन्टल पनि मान्छेहरूले बुझिरहेको हुँदैन होइन अब किन there might be a reason people look a certain way किनभने they might be dealing with certain mental health concern which led to them looking a certain way or हुन्छ जस्तै त्यो सेलिना गोमेजको people comment a lot on her how her face has changed होइन तर इट्स त्यो लुपस भएको भएर because of the medication her body changed so much yeah she was like she gained a lot of weight and एकैचोटि she lost a lot of weight so people commented on her नि त अब she might have taken certain decisions होला अब I don't know I'm not aware about her life होइन तर she had a big mental health के physical health concern जसले गर्दा it affected on her body होइन अनि त्यसैले the body looks the way it looks होइन
yeah I've also like heard about not just Selena Gomezको like I remember my brother sharing usko classmate ko story when I was like really small. Like he had a friend who was already dealing with like a lot in their family, and they were on medication as well, and not just mental health ko, but they were taking like physical health ko medication as well, which led them to gaining a lot of weight, okay? And then the weight gain bhaisकेपछि that person went on to be more bullied भनेर भन्नुभयो के. And मैले चाहिँ कस्तो like सानो हुने बेलै कस्तो त्यो wait what, like people cannot make this connection that physical health ले आफ्नो appearance change हुन्छ, like not even like large like एकदमै noticeable change चाहिँ एउटा ठाउँमा छ, त्यो सेभ फेस खालको घरको कुरा घरमै हुनुपर्छ. And then एक त as familiesहरूले नै बाहिर एक्सप्रेस गर्न थालेन, like even to your closest of the closest relatives-हरु, त्यसको माथि हामीलाई बच्चैदेखि as like females त्यसको माथि like express नगर नि भन्छ नि त, like don't express what you're feeling or like opinions-हरु like त्यसरी outwardly loud भएर express नगर भनेर नि भनिरहेको हुन्छ. त्यसको माथि like अब प्रिटिनसम्म पुग्नु बेलासम्म त हामीलाई सहेर बस पनि कति भनिरहेको हुन्छ कि. I've seen so many of my aunties say this to my mother के, like doesn't matter के भइरहेछ, तिमी सहेर बस किनभने म पनि सहेर बसिरहेको छु भनेर. I've heard like so many of my aunties like call my यसरी भनेको सुनेछु कि मैले. And then it अब as someone who has had internet को exposure privilege छ हैन, त्यो सुन्दाखेरि it sounds so absurd के. Like first of all like आन्टी तपाईँ पनि किन सहेर बसिराख्नु भएको, like तपाईँ पनि सहेर बस्नुपर्ने सम्म त त्यही रिजन छैन. But then I feel like especially हाम्रो mom and more हाम्रो grandmomहरुको बेला चाहिँ it's like if you marry into a household like that's your life, like there's no like divorce त त्यो बोल्ने त्यो the one who shall not be named खालको concept भइहाल्यो. Plus like that's your life खालको हुन्छ नि. Like if you leave this like there's nothing हुन्छ नि, like त्यो marriage को बाहिर अथवा आफ्नो यो त individual life को conversation नै भएको हुँदैन. So like त्यो imagination नै हुँदैन कि like okay this is a possibility भनेर. And I त्यही हो अब मेरो पनि like ममसँग कति कुरा हुँदाखेरि I feel like throughout the years उहाँले पनि like बिस्तारै आफ्नो vocabulary चाहिँ पाइराख्नु भएको छ. Because अब म नि कति कुरा गरिरहेको हुन्छु, maybe it's also because like म नि psychology student भएर होला. And then mom पनि she tries to look at these like Indian self-help content on Facebook अनि like मलाई पठाइरहेको हुन्छ like messengerमा like तिमीलाई थाहा थियो यस्तो हुन्छ अथवा like मलाई चाहिँ how to control your anger यस्तो खालको पठाउनु हुन्छ. But like that is so nice के हुन्छ. Like even if like maybe I don't consume that content but like oh okay मेरो मामको फेसबुकसम्म पनि पुगिरहेछ भनेर, that's like so nice to hear. And also like मैले अघि नै तपाईलाई भनेको जस्तो like यो एपिसोड गर्नलाई नि like तपाईलाई नि कति हेल्प पाएको थिएँ मैले. like do you know anyone who like specifically deals with eating disorder with clients नेपालमा, and I could not find anyone, you know. And like as a society we're not ready to have this conversation. So हाम्रो infrastructureमा त obviously त्यो lack देखि नै हाल्छौँ. But like what do you think like अहिले currently यो mental health को infrastructureमा चाहिँ how accepting is it to like talk about like these things, like not only talk about but like how is it perceived खालको भनौँ न.
like bodiesहरुको कुरा गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ मलाई चाहिँ obviously I am not aware अरु counselors-हरुले के गर्छ अरु practitioners-हरुले के. I only hear from like अरु मान्छेको experience हैन, किनभने like therapy room मा के हुन्छ I am not aware त्यस्तो राम्ररी. तर whenever I talk to like therapists अरु therapists-हरु हुन्छ नि, and यो are they body affirming or not, or हुन्छ नि यो diversity affirming or not भनेर कुरा गर्ने बेला चाहिँ कतिपय times चाहिँ I do feel like they're not भनेर. किनभने I think as someone who doesn't fit into a thin body को stereotype हैन, I see it from a lens of how would they perceive me if I went to therapy भनेर हुन्छ कि मलाई. अनि I had a really bad experience with one of my colleagues हैन. हामीले चाहिँ कुरा गरिराख्दाखेरि चाहिँ somebody was talking about their client जसलाई चाहिँ body image issues छ, अनि she mentioned एकदमै problematic views के about not the therapist or somebody else ले चाहिँ opinion दिन खोज्दाखेरि. She mentioned एकदमै problematic views about how larger bodied women चाहिँ dress a certain way to gain attention भनेर यसरी के हुन्छ नि. अनि maybe that is something you should explore, how does she dress भनेर भनेको थियो कि. अनि मलाई चाहिँ like I was just there हैन, and I was the youngest person there, and I was just there. एकदम bizarre लाग्यो कि मलाई like what is she saying भनेर. अनि I second guessed myself पनि कि मैले wrong सुने होला भनेर अनि बिकज सी इज लार्जर बडिड होइन अनि मेबी सी इज trying to gain male attention because हुन्छ नि like she has larger breasts so maybe she's dressing up a certain way भने यसरी के like that was the intention of हुन्छ नि मैले दुईचोटि सोधेँ भने कि अनि I am scared कहिलेकाहीँ चाहिँ to recommend people हुन्छ नि to certain therapists किनभने I never know कस्तो intention हुन्छ or what are their perceptions about all these like diverse body types हुन्छ नि and diverse experiences that people go through अनि especially to experience पछि I'm a little alert कि किनभने like look at like women around us and they come in all different shapes and sizes and they have their own experiences and a lot of it is attached to our bodies and किनभने that is the lens from which everybody looks at us and we're judged constantly so self-esteem is very heavily tied to our bodies and just because it is भन्ने बित्तिकै हुन्छ नि just because we look a certain way I wouldn't want anyone to be judged especially therapy room so मलाई चाहिँ there is a lot of work that needs to be done in that regard लाग्छ having said that there are like good therapists who do like हुन्छ नि look at individuals as a whole person rather than हुन्छ नि these के भन्छ body types भनेर नहेरिकन तर I think we should be more inclusive in our approach like even like students अहिले पढिरहेको psychology पढिरहेको who plan to practice in therapy पनि I think they need to like sort of unlearn their own like internalized beliefs कि यस्तो भयो भने चाहिँ ideal body type हो यस्तो चाहिँ होइन and the way we talk about it पनि त्यो ल्याङ्ग्वेजमा चाहिँ एकदम चेन्ज चाहिँ ल्याउनुपर्छ अनि also the way we talk about our own bodies किनभने जस्तै मैले नै if I start like हुन्छ नि self hating my body and talk about my body in a very negative light like how am I supposed to help my client who's dealing with the same thing or if I don't accept maybe I also go through these negative cycles होला तर I हुन्छ नि मैले पनि in the way that I talk मा चाहिँ the मैले language form गर्ने भए चाहिँ I think I should also work होइन same with like students हरूमा पनि language like because culturally चाहिँ हामीलाई कस्तो दिएको छ भने हाम्रो languageमा नै there is like self hate धेरै छ होइन self deprecating हाम्रो humor पनि त्यस्तै हुन्छ so as students who are maybe planning to practice in therapy or in psychology in general हामीले हाम्रो ल्याङ्ग्वेजमा चाहिँ चेन्ज चाहिँ गर्नुपर्छ so don't be that counselor who said that basically so त्यो एउटा चाहिँ हो अनि I think like you said specialization नै गर्ने मान्छे नभेटेपछि चाहिँ अलिक गाह्रो चाहिँ हुन्छ like मेरो यो पर्टिकुलर इस्युमै काम गर्ने मान्छे भयो भने चाहिँ I think there is a more nuanced experience of therapy तर let's say अब जस्तो for example कोही ADHD भएको मान्छे neurodivergent issues थाहा नभएकोमा गयो भने they have a completely different experience तर let's say मेरोमा आयो भने because I am like aware about these things and म यही practice गर्छु maybe they'll have a different experience with me होइन तर जस्तै I have no experience with के भन्छ अब कुनै पनि पर्टिकुलर डिसअर्डर तर म कहाँ आयो भने दे माइट नट ह्याभ द मोस्ट फुलफिलिङ एक्सपिरियन्स होइन त्यसैले त्यो स्पेसलाइजेसन चाहिँ एकदमै इम्पोर्टेन्ट छ विच इज मिसिङ एन्ड होपफुली द्याट ग्याप इज फिल्ड होइन तर आई थिङ्क मेन्टल हेल्थ फिल्ड इज लाइक ऱ्यापिडली अब गेटिङ बेटर जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई बिकज सो मेनी पिपल कम टु लाइक हुन्छ साइकोलोजी फिल्ड जस्तै मेरो अहिले नै थेम्समा देयर इज लाइक 100+ students pursuing psychology, which is brilliant. I mean, like a lot of people wanting to study psychology, and if two madhyama, 5% matter therapists are specialized in a specific thing, the field is ever like growing. I do see hope, especially younger people, but I see hope, and I see hope from my colleagues who are like similar age, similar thinking process भएको मान्छेहरू but I see a lot of hope who give like हुन्छ नि एकदम धेरै compassion to their clients and make them feel valued and everything तर a lot of work is still to be done so because त्यस्तो खालको काउन्सलरहरू पनि हुन्छ we don't know कतिजना हुन्छ
we don't even have to license छैन नि त हाम्रो there's like no way of like filtering out like who is a good counselor or like who's like very like जे पाइ त्यो कुरा भनिदिने एटलिस्ट लाइसेन्स सिस्टम भएको त्यो फिल्टर हुन्थ्यो नि त अब यता त अब लाइक यु कम्प्लिट अ डिग्री यु क्यान बी अ काउन्सलर त्यस्तो पनि भयो प्लस अब there's like so many like that's why it like not only mental health को कुरामा अरू कति धेरै कुरा गर्दाखेरि it like really gets me कस्तो confused or like thinking as well like हाम्रो सोसाइटीमा कति धेरै कुराले इम्प्याक्ट हुन्छ नि त अब we're not living as an individual I mean we're living inside a family यता there's like so many things that come अनि त्यसको माथि we have like deep histories with our cultural beliefs के हुन्छ के हुँदैन भनेर and त्यो हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ like I like sometimes like as a student पनि like where do I look for answers जस्तो हुन्छ कि because again like अब talk therapy भनेको सबसे popular form of therapy भयो हैन अब मेबी हाम्रो जस्तो सोसाइटीमा टक थेरापी युजफुलै नहोला कि बसेर त्यो कुरा गर्ने बानी छैन नि त लाइक एक्सप्रेस गर्नबाट नै हामीलाई कति डिस्करेज गरेको हुन्छ अनि टक थेरापीमा बोलेर मात्र हामीलाई त्यो टक थेरापी नै काम नलाग्ने हो कि अनि त्यो अल्टरनेटिभ या तपाईँले भनेको चाहिँ विच इज भेरी ट्रु द्याट इट्स भेरी लाइक ऱ्यापिडली इभल्भिङ एज वेल हाम्रो कलेजमा पनि लाइक आवर कलेज ह्याड टु एड अ होल सेक्सन बिकज साइकोलोजिस्ट धेरै आइरहेको थियो कि विच मेक्स मी सो ह्याप्पी. But at the same time, like I'm also concerned, like, are they getting up-to-date education or not? You know? But at this point, since we have like access to a lot of things on the internet devices, like we don't have an excuse to not learn new things. And like we can keep up to date with 𝗵𝗵𝗹𝗶𝗵, that's all, 𝐸𝐭𝐸 practices and everything. But yeah, but मलाई अर्को कुरा के पनि लाइक जान्नु थियो भने लाइक अब not just body image को but psychiatric illness तिरै नै जाँदाखेरि पनि like usually eating disorders like what form of therapy is like most used? Maybe not Nepalma but just like Baira or globally.
So I think मेरो experience studying in the UK CBT is एकदमै धेरै used for a lot of disorders including eating disorder. I am not like this much. I am not well versed. यो नेपालमा चाहिँ के हुन्छ भने चाहिँ I am not well versed किनभने every counselor uses their own therapy, so I am not going to say anything about that. तर UK मा चाहिँ CBT is heavily prescribed for eating disorder किनभने in a way it is the thought कै कुरा हो नि त, cognition कै कुरा हो, where you perceive your body in a certain way. So I think त्यो भएर that is used a lot more, right? Again talk therapy नै भइहाल्यो, but also I think medication plus CBT हुन्छ usually चाहिँ in like if you go take psychiatric help, that is हैन. अब त्यो एक्सेस गर्नलाई नि again financial factors, all of those things आइ नै हाल्छ. तर मेरो knowledge being having like studied in the UK चाहिँ त्यो चाहिँ I am aware त्यो चाहिँ हो भनेर.
Yeah, access को कुरा physics. That's the thing कि like living in this country or like also like similar countries or like in this economy हुन्छ like के मात्र हेर्ने कि अब एजुकेसन हेर्ने कि एक्सेस हेर्ने कि फेरि नेपालको त्यो ल्यान्डस्केपले नै कति धेरै ब्यारियर्सहरू ल्याइदिन्छ. ल्याङ्ग्वेज ब्यारियर्स छ, वी हेभ सो मेनी इन्डिजिनस कम्युनिटिज अनि सबैजनाको मेन ल्याङ्ग्वेज नेपाली हुन्छ भन्ने छैन त्यसको माथि. मेबी उहाँहरूको इन्डिजिनस ल्याङ्ग्वेजमा अझै डिफ्रेन्ट वर्ड्सहरू होला द्याट्स लाइक नट इभन एक्जिस्ट इन नेपाली डिक्सनरी. यस्तो कुराहरू त्यस लाइक कति धेरै कुरा छ कि गर्नको लागि नेपालमा. बट या दिस लाइक अ लट अफ होप पनि लाइक स्पेसली युथहरूबाट नै लाइक नयाँ धेरैजनाले साइकोलोजी एज सब्जेक्ट पनि इन्ट्रेस्ट देखाइरहेछ अनि नट नेसेसरीली एजुकेसनमै साइकोलोजी नलिए पनि लाइक पप साइकोलोजी लाइक दे आर एटलिस्ट लाइक अवेर अफ अ लट अफ मोर थिङ्स भनौँ लाइक इभन कम्पेयर टु वाट like मेरो एजको किड्सहरू like while growing up हामीले पनि like extremely हाम्रो generation is extremely त्यो टिभीमा हुर्केको त्यो इन्डियन सिरियल्सहरू हेरेर and नेपाली त के हो नेपाली यो त्यो like इन्डियन सिरिजमा यस्तो यस्तो हुन्छ त्यो हेरेर हुर्केको. बट या त्यसको माथि फेरि unless we get support from the state as well, I feel like त्यो इकोनोमिक त्यो ब्यारियर्स हुन्छै हुन्छ because अब as a psychologist, if I cannot or my clinic doesn't earn like a certain amount, I have to charge a lot for my therapy भन्ने नि हुन्छ. But then again कति धेरै बाहिरको कुराहरूमा again like taking reference बाहिरकैबाट they have like organizations that उहाँहरूले they function on donations अथवा they function on like त्यो ING को fundings so they provide like एकदमै cheaper comparatively cheaper rates मा therapy अथवा completely free based on the situation. यस्तो कुराहरू पनि like we have like a long way to go. अब मेरो फोन इज स्विच अफ लाइक आई क्यान नट आस्क यु एनी क्वेसन्स नाउ.
आई डु थिङ्क हामीले प्रिभेन्सनको धेरै कुरा गऱ्यो होइन, यसरी क्योरको धेरै कुरा गरिसक्यो नि त. आई फिल लाइक बिकज हामी सोसियल मिडियाको त कुरा गऱ्यो बिकज इट कन्ज्युम सो मच सोसियल मिडिया होइन. कति कुराहरू चाहिँ द वे हामीले बडिज लाइक फिमेल बडिज जस्ट बडिज इन जेनरलको बारेमा कुरा गर्छ नि होइन, त्यसमा चाहिँ मिडिया अल्सो हेज अ बिग रोल नि त इन द वे द पर्सेप्सन इज सेप्ड होइन. मलाई चाहिँ फिमेल बडिजलाई चाहिँ जहिले पनि इट्स टार्गेटेड बाई मिडिया एज वेल कि होइन. जस्तै केही नराम्रो भयो भने पनि I will do this to you, acid फाल्दिन्छु
Yes.
हुन्छ नि I के भन्छ trigger warning होइन sexually assault you a lot of त्यो narratives आइरहन्छ नि death threats होइन like hurting women's bodies वाला आइरहन्छ नि त नि recently यो the rebel kid भन्ने influencer छ कि अपूर्वा हो उसको नाम
Yes, yes, yes.
उसले पनि like she went through a big controversy about त्यो India's Got Latent or she said something in that show and it was not that problematic. She was defending herself and because she used certain curse words while defending herself होइन उसलाई चाहिँ threatsहरू आउन थाल्यो कि like acid फाल्दिन्छु हुन्छ नि I'll rape you, I'll do this to you, I'll do this to your body भनेर हुन्छ नि threatsहरू आउन थाल्यो कि अनि I was watching her videos होइन किनकि I found it very like weird that was the way the whole country the India reacted to हुन्छ नि what she was like एउटा line that she said okay, while defending herself and she used 2 curse words there भनेर होइन अनि the immediate reaction was oh I will hurt your body because you are a woman भनेर होइन अनि same thing with हामीले कुरा गर्ने बेला पनि हामीलाई के भयो भने इज्जत जान्छ भन्छ नि त होइन जस्तै like we don't हाम्रो इज्जतै हाम्रो बडीमा छ कि more than that हाम्रो like reproductive organमा छ कि होइन हाम्रो इज्जत because we use it that way अनि even like everyone is socialized to say कि if a woman does something bad होइन hurt her body भनेर त्यो वाला इस्यु छ नि अनि even in adult movies पनि त्यसरी नै देखाएको हुन्छ नि त होइन so I think त्यो भएर त्यो perceptionsहरू यसरी फर्म भएको छ कि media has such a big role to play in like navigating this के त्यो सबै गर्नुभन्दा हुन्छ नि if we show women in an empowering light मलाई चाहिँ that is so much like media has such a big role के हामीले यो individual levelमा त कुरा गऱ्यो we can have these conversations हुन्छ नि we are like there are people coming in psychology field भनेर तर media as a whole the power it holds हुन्छ नि and अहिलेसम्म भइरहेको impact like it could take a different, more human turn for women.
It
can,
but will it? That's like the grim reality. Like obviously, गर्ने मिडियाहरूले गरिरहेछ होइन but like कति performative हो कति in the name of inclusiveness गरिरह हो के गरिरह हो I think हिजो भर्खरै हो I saw this news Katy Perry त्यो
yes
11 minutes अगाडि first of all like that team had like 2 amazing women one of them was a woman I forgot her full name but I think it was Amanda Wen and she had been fighting for her against she was fighting in courts for like against her rapist like she was trying to reform a whole civil law like she was studying I think I'm not exactly sure there was something related to physics and space astronomy ne Harvard she was assaulted like all of this and she had been like all these years like she wanted to be an astronaut but along with the Katy Perry team she got the opportunity to like finally go into space but like that was also like completely overshadowed but then again like why go to space like that त्यो कुरा already छ but यस्तो कुराहरू पनि कति performative हो like गर्नको लागि मात्र पनि कति गरिरा हुन्छ नि त and then there's only so much you can do like to be like truly live the theory that you believe and again त्यो under त्यो mafia I mean medical mafia यो makeup mafia के भन्छ नि obviously they're not gonna let the entire global mainstream media talk about like accepting your body because like unharko markets are gonna be down no one's gonna be insecure hence no one's gonna buy their creams no one's gonna buy their like diet pills no one's gonna go to the doctor for like cosmetic surgery no one's gonna be insecure hence they're not gonna earn money so like the global larger scale ma ta is there hope I'm getting existential at this point
even like especially because of Trump त्यो DEI हटाएको भयो I think bodies is such a big part of that होइन I saw this Trump supporting YouTuber say कि होइन Miss Universe I don't know कुन country को but a white woman won Miss Universe को pageant and she was like oh the के भन्छ world is coming back to normal a normal woman won Miss Universe भनेर okay I will send you the link to this होइन तर that is so lame के what do you mean white women हरूले pageant जित्ने is not a big deal होइन तर it's like त्यो because of the sentiments that Trump supports and like हुन्छ नि body को factor being one of them होइन I think जुन we worked so hard, like people before us worked so hard overcoming that and making the society more inclusive. I do feel because of the influence US has, it's going back to what it used to be. Okay?
Yeah.
So there is like obviously हामीहरु कति वेमा अहिले रिग्रेस पनि भइरहेछ नि त, so that is a concern. So I do मलाई पनि हुन्छ यो existential
we
dread.
we cannot completely disregard the US को influence because it does have like a lot of influence like oily like यो कुरा गर्यो भने गरे गरे हुन्छ. I'm just going to stop here and मेरो क्यामेराको ब्याट्री सकिन्छ. I'm so sorry. Okay, again, like I don't have any questions obviously. Like it was really nice to have this conversation honestly. Like I don't think I've ever like sat with someone and like actually talked about like कस्तो हुन्छ experiences of women when it comes to our body, when it comes to our body and interacting with other people and especially mom-हरुको कुरा like गर्ने पाइरा हुँदैन नि त हैन. And honestly it was मैले धेरै नै नयाँ कुराहरु पनि सिके जस्तो लाग्यो like from you obviously. And I'm so happy. I'm actually so happy to be able to do this episode and I hope our listeners हरुले पनि केही नयाँ कुराहरु सिक्नुभयो. This was interesting and I remember 1 year ago I asked you my last question. I asked you a last question and I was not sure if I wanted to ask it, but if you want to answer it, like what is one piece of wisdom that you want to share to other people?
Don't say problematic things.
Yes, don't say. Be educated. You have the resources. Thank you so much. Bye bye.